Hi, Stuart.
Good evening.
I apologize. I'm running late. My house is all discombobulated because everybody's doing the work from home. All the kids are in school at home. So,
No problem. No, nothing to apologize for.
and I can't hear anybody right now. So it appears that there's an issue with my audio as well.
Hello, good evening. Jaime, Happy New Year. Good evening, Stuart. Catherine, Happy New Year.
Hi, Happy New Year.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes, Jaime.
Great.
Jaime, it took a minute or two for me to be let in this evening. Might there be others in the waiting room, or should I just get started?
It's possible there are others in the waiting room. Let me just check real quick. The reason actually, no, it's just us right now. So no, I think that you may want to wait a minute. I'll just give it another 2 minutes. It's possible people were trying to get on before and couldn't because I had not yet logged in. That's so. Apologies for that.
The only commission member I heard from who definitely won't be here tonight is Joyce Cole.
There are no HPC matters on the agenda today, right? So no cases, I should say.
Right.
So,
I mean that I'm aware.
So I guess if that's the case, you can move forward. I had not heard from anybody that they would not be attending tonight's meeting, but you never know. So. We have somebody in the attendee gallery, Stephen Casey, so I'll bring him in.
Okay. Well, why don't we get started? Does that sound all right, Jaime?
That works for me.
Okay. Okay, good evening. It is about 7 minutes after 7 on Monday, January 3rd, 2022. This is the first Village of Ossining HPC meeting of the new year. I'm Adam Markovics, the chair. Could the other members and others at the meeting state their name for the record this evening?
Catherine Wilson.
Steve Casey.
Jaime Martinez, Planning Director of the Village of Ossining, staff to the board.
And Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahan. And Adam, as you're aware, this is not an official meeting. You do not have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you, Stuart. All right. Well, I'm probably at fault for not recognizing the choice of the date for today's meeting. This is the first Monday after, the holidays. Many people may still be away on break. And since our last meeting, there's been a terrible and tremendous surge in COVID cases. And some people may be dealing with that and affected by the virus. So with that said, I think this will be a brief meeting. We don't have a quorum, but we also don't have any applications on the agenda. This is a meeting at which we'll just talk about briefly some of the things we left off talking about at the last meeting. And I'll jump right in. Going out of order, we spoke last time about doing a second essay contest or video contest. And it's important, I think it was, Stuart deserves credit for this, I believe. He may not remember, but I think he's the one who suggested that if we do an essay contest, we also do, offer the option of video, making the option available to students who would rather do a video rather than submit an essay in response to a contest on historic preservation. We did one in 2020 with Ossining High School, and I think it would be nice to do a second. I reached out to my contact at the high school. Her name is Mirla Puelo. And she responded to me just today that there's someone at the high school who I should be in touch with going forward. Joyce Cole and Phil Ferranda have indicated an interest in taking the lead with the contest going forward. So I'm hoping to set up a meeting between Phil and Joyce and this other individual at the high school so that we can begin a dialogue about it. I would assume that the high school would be interested in moving forward with a second installment of the contest. So then it'll be up to Joyce and Phil to work out the logistics. We've already crafted, I think, a pretty good template for the contest rules, and we generated a rubric for judging entrants. So it's pretty much ready to go. It's just a question of settling on the timing and how to roll it out best to attract as many students as possible, which was an issue the last time. We had very few takers, very few entrants. So I'm hoping if we do it again that we can generate more interest in the contest. So that's that. The HPC web page we talked about at the last meeting, and Joyce Cole volunteered to take the lead on that. The issue there was revising or editing the HPC web page so that it's clear to everyone which properties in the village of Ossining are locally landmarked outside of the historic districts, the Sparta district and the Main Street district. So that information is not readily available anywhere on our web page right now, and it should be. So Joyce has been working, I believe, with the planning department. I'm not sure the status of the communications. It's obviously been a difficult time between when we discussed this, the last meeting, and now between holidays and COVID. I don't think there have been any changes made to the web page since our last meeting.
We did meet with her. So me and Jamie came, myself, and Joyce did meet and went over some of the changes. She only really had, I think it was just the one change, but she went over the details of how she wanted to change. I did not check since then to see if that has been adjusted. I'm looking right now to try to see if I can check the site. So let's take a look and see if that changed. It doesn't look like it's been updated just yet. So I'll follow up with Jamie Kane to see about getting that on there. I would note that the item that you want, I think, is here, but it's not on the side, which is where you want to have it. So I'll check in with her, see if we can get that move forward. But we did meet with her.
Okay, that's great. Good to hear, Jaime. So that's that. And I think there's just one item more on the agenda this evening, and that's the National Register listing nomination process. I should note that the webinar that we did last year in October in partnership with the Preservation League of New York State and the State Historic Preservation Office on homeowner and income producing tax credits, I think generated a fair amount of interest in our village. I was contacted by one homeowner, a relatively new resident here in the village of Ossining, who has purchased a great Victorian house on Hamilton Avenue, who is interested in pursuing the tax credits in connection with some possible future renovations. And we learned through the webinar back in October that in order to take advantage of the tax credits, both the state and federal in the case of income producing properties, in order to take advantage of those tax credits for owners who want to rehabilitate their properties, property in the first place needs to be listed on the National Register of Historic Places. You have to be listed on that register in order to take advantage of these tax credits. And this owner's property is not on the National Register. And the owner wanted to know, well, how do I get my property listed? I advised the owner of this property on Hamilton Avenue that the HPC would be more than happy to assist to the extent that we can in pursuing National Register listing for this property as a predicate to then going on and taking advantage of the tax credits. So Stephen Casey at the last meeting expressed an interest in taking the lead on this project. And I did a little research myself on the National Register listing process. And I discovered in my research that it really is very, very much a process. It's a lengthy process that, according to the materials published by the State Historic Preservation Office, which really oversees the process, takes really about a year, start to finish, in almost all cases. It's about a year-long process, and part of the reason that it takes so long is that the application needs to be reviewed by the state office. And then once it's reviewed by the state office, it needs to be forwarded on to the Secretary of the Interior, the Federal Secretary of the Interior, which maintains the National Register. Various notices need to be sent out. There needs to be a comment period. And so this entire process takes about a year. I also discovered that very, very often, because the application itself requires a fairly extensive summary of the architectural features of a property and the historic background of a property. Very, very often, because of that, homeowners and others who wish to pursue National Register listing will retain a consultant. And I think there is a cottage industry of consultants who prepare these applications. It's worth, I think, learning more about that part of the process, because I think that's the hardest or the most time-consuming or most labor-intensive part of the process from the applicant's point of view, is just getting the application completed. The rest of it, sort of communicating back and forth with the State Historic Preservation Office and the logistics, that's not so much of a obstacle or ordeal. It's getting the application completed, and from what I understand, very often that's done with the help of a paid consultant. And I have no idea how much these consultants charge. I know that the State Historic Preservation Office maintains a list of these consultants. And I also know that, speaking of this State Preservation Office, step one of the process is to call the State Historic Preservation Office and get in touch with the regional representative who handles National Register listings and start a dialogue. In this respect, the State Historic Preservation Office is really totally different from most state agencies, in that, most state agencies will sort of send applicants or others away until, they absolutely need something, or until an application is ready to be reviewed. But the State Historic Preservation Office, unlike so many other state agencies, really sees itself as a partner and collaborator with interested applicants. It has a stake in a good outcome here. And so it makes sense that they're much more hands-on than most state agencies in other contexts are. And so I believe Stephen Casey on our commission is going to be reaching out as a first step to the regional representative of the State Historic Preservation Office to start a dialogue about this property and what's the best way forward, and perhaps talk about consultants and how necessary they really are. If you read between the lines of the literature on the State Historic Preservation Office site, it sounds like it's really very common for homeowners to retain a consultant. So Stephen will, I'm sure, report back to us at the next meeting as to.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, thanks, Adam. I did
Sure.
a lot of reading about this last week. Before I made that phone call, I just wanted to make sure I was speaking with some education on this. And interestingly enough, there's a pretty good course on the New York State site that you can get 1.5 CPEs for as well. So, but it's also extremely useful and interesting. Part of it, you can almost go down a rabbit hole here because there's a lot of interesting links and a lot of good information. There is, however, a group also called, and I haven't looked into them further yet, called the Preservation League of New York State. It's a not-for-profit. Mm-hmm. And they apparently have resources to help people with this process. So that may be an avenue in lieu of people going out and hiring paid consultants. They're a not-for-profit, and their mission is to preserve historic structures within the state of New York. So it's, again, another organization with an interest in doing this and helping people do this. So yeah, at the next meeting, I hope to be able to put a lot more information together. I have a lot of notes already, and maybe I can do a small little presentation on what I found.
That would be terrific, Steve. I think it's useful and important that the HPC be up on this. In fact, just a week or two ago, by way of segue, and Steve, jump back in if you have anything more to add, but another not quite homeowner, but almost homeowner or property owner reached out to me. Someone who is, I think, on the verge of purchasing the James Robinson house, which is locally landmarked. It's 30 State Street. But interestingly, it's the reverse of the case that we often see, where we've got nationally registered listed properties that are not locally landmarked. Here with the James Robinson house, we have a property that is locally landmarked, but is not on the National Register. And this homeowner too, or prospective homeowner or property owner, is also interested in the tax credits, having viewed the October webinar. And as a prerequisite to those tax credits, wants to get the property listed on the National Register. So we may be assisting others with this process, and it'd be great to to be a source of information locally. I mean, there's really nothing better than being in a position to help your neighbors out and give them information about how to do this at the local level. I think that's wonderful if we could develop, some more knowledge.
One of the interesting things that came out of the web presentation on the New York State site was, and that would help inform us, I think, in making decisions as various proposals come before us. There are things you can do. You could have a site or a building that would normally qualify for listing. But if the restoration isn't done right or additions aren't done right, you can actually destroy any eligibility because you've done such damage to the integrity or architectural value of the property. And I have some very interesting, before and after or various types of comparisons. Why is this, although this was done, why is this still eligible, and what's still interesting about this? Whereas this type of restoration of what must have been a similar building has now completely destroyed this from being of interest. So if anyone hasn't taken it, I mean, again, I think it's 1.5 CPEs, so it's good for what we need to do annually, but it's very, very informative as well.
Steve,
I'll put that in my presentation next month also.
Is that course, out of curiosity, on the New York State Department of State website or somewhere else?
It's on the New York State website. I'll find out. I think it's in, the Parks and Recreation and Historical Preservation, and they have a number of courses listed there. They're free, and then there's a quiz at the end. This one is very, very useful. I'll send out the name.
Okay.
It's just very, very valuable. A lot of it is the information, Adam, that you've already garnered, but and just summarized at the beginning. But it's quite interesting. But some of the examples were quite interesting about why this is okay, this is not, et cetera, et cetera. And it might it help inform us when we have proposals and in ways of thinking about things that come before us.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Yeah, if you could share that link either in an email or in your presentation. And again, no pressure to do a formal presentation, but if you're going to, prepare something, it'd be great to share the link to that presentation. All right, so that's what we've got on the agenda. I don't have any further thoughts to add. Steve, Catherine, anything further?
No, nothing further. I'd love to see that that video, that link for the course. That sounds very interesting.
Actually, I do have one last thing. Jaime, if you're still here, for some reason I can only see Catherine's face right now and
I'm still here, yeah.
screen. I know, I think this happened either right before the last meeting or right after, but Ossining was awarded a significant grant from the state of New York, $10 million. Could you maybe provide a quick update on, on that and whether any of that funding is going to be set aside for historic preservation matters? I think I read something about 200 Main Street being included in some of the funding.
Is going to go to a set of projects, public and private, that will help to pay for what the community really wants to see there in conjunction with the states. The state's going to sort of kind of run the show and helping to put on a bunch of community engagement sessions and go through that process. So we applied and highlighted a bunch of projects that we thought would be good DRI projects that are in the downtown revitalization area, which is essentially like the crescent all the way down to the water. And so there are elements of it that would certainly benefit some historic, areas. And I think a lot of what was discussed there was about trying to bring back the general vitality that was lost due to urban renewal. But there are no immediately identified projects that are, 100% guaranteed. They have to go through this community engagement process to make a determination based off of that process as to what those projects will be. So there's, right now, no, I can't tell you, but there might be some money that goes towards further work on 20 Main Street, which is a historic building, of course. There could be, money going towards streetscape improvements in the Station Plaza neighborhood, which has, obviously impacts Water Street, which has some older homes on it. So it just depends kind of, what shakes out of the process. I imagine some money will be connected to, helping with some of the historic areas, but it's not a grant that's primarily focused on historic preservation, rather it's economic development focused.
Right. When do you expect the engagement process to start?
I think it's supposed to start, pretty soon, like maybe in February. We have a kind of a semi kickoff meeting, I think later this week, with their team and people from our side. I want to say that's like Wednesday or Thursday. And then we should know a little bit more by then. There was a meeting that took place over the holidays that I missed, so I can't give you the updates on that, but pretty soon. I don't know about January, but I think maybe we're shooting for like February to start.
If there's anything you can forward to the group, and I fully understand this is not $10 million for historic preservation, but if there's any, any way that the HPC can sort of weigh in on, the importance of using some of this funding to revitalize some of the properties, if you could keep us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd appreciate it.
Definitely we'll do that.
Yeah, every time I drive past the First Baptist Church, I did my that there are. It's a very difficult thing. It's there's limited funding. Most of the grants out there require matching funds, and you have to have an entity involved that's really gung-ho about preservation. And I think they've got their hands full with a lot of issues at the First Baptist Church, but maybe we can put it back on the agenda. It's not getting any better. The steeple is sort of crumbling before our eyes.
Okay. I think, yeah, I mean, definitely there's community engagement process. So I think that's probably the place where you want to propose stuff like that. But, one of the biggest things that was talked about, I know during our process, community center obviously is a big piece of it. And there's peer came up as part of it. There's sink and kill, improvements. So there's a lot of interest in a lot of different areas.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I know, certainly the church itself would want to be kind of actively involved in trying to push for that. And, so I'm not sure whether they fall under the eligibility for that, but certainly, it's interesting. So
Yeah.
something to bring up.
All right. Well, as Stuart put it, this is not exactly a meeting. We don't have a quorum. Do we need to, Jaime, make a motion to adjourn? We can just end it.
You just end it.
All right. Well, I'm in favor of ending it. How's that sound to everybody else?
Good.
Aye.
Before we end it, can I just ask, while it's in my head, the community engagement is specifically, like, the community engagement would never be the HPC as a community board?
You mean like stakeholder groups?
I don't know, like, could we approach that as the HPC kind of?
There's a list of, there's a local planning committee and there's stakeholder groups and things of that nature. So that stuff is sort of being led up by that process. So I don't have an answer to you right now as to whether or not the HPC is going to be involved in the community engagement process directly, whether that's through a stakeholder group or whether you just be a part of the regular general process. So I don't want to tell you the wrong answer, but the thing that is kind of important to understand, which was sort of news to me when we won the award, was that the process is really led by the state. And the state hires a consultant to come in and sort of oversee the process. And we work in partnership with the state. But because it's the state's money and the state really is not interested in getting involved in local politics, they kind of determine who's on the committee. They determine everything. They sort of, they're like the neutral arbiter coming in from outside. It's their money, so it's understandable. But we really don't have that much say in how this.
Right. So restoring a church steeple probably would not be at the top of that list for that money.
Which is to say, I don't know. If that's a long answer to get to, I don't know, because we just haven't gotten that deep in the process yet.
But it's not like there's a hearing on projects that the community would like to see that money be invested in. It's not like that.
Oh yeah, there will be. Yeah.
Oh, it is like that.
Yeah, well, it is like that. Yeah, it'll be basically.
So I was wondering if that's the case. Is it it's not something the HPC would come to present an idea as, because it's like the government.
I mean, so what when during the comprehensive plan process, you may remember. So the comprehensive plan process had stakeholder committee meetings, right?
Yeah.
And so there was general meetings where everybody got together and said, "Hey, what do you want to do?" But there are also stakeholder meetings of people that were very, kind of vested interest in what's going on. And so if they have those again, right, if that happens, similar to the comp plan process, there might be an instance where there's a more focused group of people and they say, HPC, EAC, zoning board, planning board, we want to get you all in a room. We want to hear what you're thinking.
Okay.
And then there might be another one, there's a public session. I just don't know whether they're going to do it like that, where you're going to have a more sort of targeted group, or whether all of them are going to be general. I would guess that they're probably gonna have some that are targeted groups. And in that instance, there'd be
Yep.
invites sent out to board members. But again, it's kind of run by the state, so we're sort of taking their lead on it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think that's it. Nice seeing you all, and the next
Happy New
meeting
Year.
and Happy New Year. Next meeting's, I don't have it in front of me. So sometime in February. Is it the first Monday of February?
Yeah. Probably, yeah. Let me check right now.
That would be the 7th.
Looks like February 7th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's hope that the world's in a better state then.
Yes.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.